Arsenal are top of the league in England. It hasn't rained in 2 months in London. And the US men's national team strikers are all scoring. What the f is going on? We are living in an upside down world. And today we need to take a look at how we can solve this. What is up, everyone? My name is Jake and you're watching It's Called Soccer. Since the last video that we did, you guys have gone absolutely crazy supporting the subscriber base. In the last video, we were able to fill a 5,200 capacity stadium for Forward Madison FC. And we are already at the point now with over 5,400 subscribers where we could fill the Chai Memorial Stadium where the Chattanooga Red Wolves and the Chattanooga Lady Red Wolves play. So guys, if you want to fill a larger stadium and you love talking about US soccer, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. But today we are talking about the US strikers. Josh Sargent, Jesus Ferreira, Haji Wright, Jordan Peafock, Brandon Vasquez are all on scoring streaks. And the one person that's left out, Ricardo Pepe. So we need to talk about that today. Now let's talk about Josh Sargent first. He has 3 goals in his last 2 games. A header, a really nice 1-2 play where he played a wall pass, got it back and was able to slot it home. And then another one that was just a really nice, powerful shot. So really showing his versatility. I think he's gotten himself back in the good graces of the Norwich City fans. I was listening to The Scrimmage, which is a BBC podcast all dedicated to Norwich City. They were talking about Sarge, as they affectionately know him as a player that is really what have you done for me lately. But when he's scoring, when he's actually playing at the number 9 position, which is something we have not seen at Norwich City so far for Josh Sargent, only recently in these last 2 games has he played at the striker position, and he has been producing. Can we see what he's actually all about, and can we see what Josh Sargent can bring to the US men's national team? The podcast was talking about how the fans have really lost a lot of faith in Josh Sargent because of him playing out of position, because he hasn't produced for Norwich City. And if we can go back to last season, Farka, who was the coach at the beginning of the Premier League season for Norwich City, had said that Josh Sargent was going to be the best transfer of the season for any team. Now, it didn't quite work out. He had a good game against Watford. He had a couple of issues with COVID. Then he had a baby. So that all kind of messed with his season. Now that he's back on track, Teemu Pukki was injured and Josh Sargent finally got the chance to show his mettle at the number 9 position. He's banging in goals. So what does that actually show us? Put him in a position where he can succeed. Put him at his preferred number 9 position, and he will produce for you. Now, I think something that gets lost a little bit for Josh Sargent is because he's such a good coach's player. He trains really well. We always hear from his coaches about how hard he works and how good of a player in practice he is. I actually think that sometimes works to his detriment because coaches want to get him on the field. And when you have a player like Teemu Pukki, who is a Norwich City legend, the best striker that Norwich City has ever had in their history, Josh Sargent is probably going to fall to the wayside and have to play a different position. So if the managers want to get him on the pitch, he's not going to play in that number 9 position if Teemu Pukki is healthy. Let's talk about Jesus Ferreira, right? He's scoring in bunches. He's scoring for fun. Finally, we're seeing the Jesus Ferreira that is DP level. 20 goal contributions in 27 matches. He's working really well with Paul Arriola in the FC Dallas system. And for me, Jesus Ferreira is probably the one player that is pretty much a lock at this point for the World Cup. I don't say that because he's playing in MLS or the competition, blah, 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 blah. Jesus Ferreira is the best and most informed US men's national team striker. He has scored the most for the US men's national team. He's played the most with the US men's national team. He knows Gregg's system the most out of all the players that we're talking about. And that is a detriment to how we evaluate players, right? I think if you put Jesus Ferreira against a player like Haji Wright, someone who is also scoring in bunches, but in the Turkish league now, he had 2 goals and 1 assist last night. That is a player, if he had taken the spot of, say, a Giassi Zardes throughout the qualifying and gotten those reps, even Jordan Peafock, right? If he had played for the US men's national team in a good amount of minutes before that Mexico game, we would know what they were all about. We would have a larger picture and a larger population of data to pull from. But I think for me, Jesus Ferreira, no matter what he does from this point on, I mean, he's pretty much locked. 20 goal contributions, amazing numbers to put up in MLS. He still has some games to go, so we'll see what he does for the rest of the season. But I think Jesus Ferreira is probably number 1 or 2 in that depth chart for the US men's national team right now. All right, let's talk a little bit about Haji Wright right now, who plays for Antalyaspor in Turkey. Last season, he was on loan there and had a better goals per 90 than Kyle Larin, the Canadian sensation. And this season, he has already started really well. Last night, he had a penalty goal, an assist, and a deflected goal that counted for him. So 2 goals, 1 assist in the last match, and he's really started the season off hot. I think Haji Wright, along with the penalty that he scored for the US men's national team in the previous friendlies, he's going to be in the September camp, but because everybody else is scoring now, that is going to make it a lot more difficult to make this roster. You really need to prove yourself in that September friendly game against Saudi Arabia and Japan. Now, I say that because Jesus Ferreira is pretty much not the locked-on starter, but a locked-on roster pick for the World Cup. That leaves us with 2, maybe 3 additions for the forward position. Now, with Josh Sargent, with Jordan Peafock, everybody coming into their own, Brandon Vasquez, Ricardo Pepe even, because of what he's done for the World Cup qualifying campaign, all of those players are in contention for 3 spots. And if I'm going to put Jesus Ferreira in one of those spots, I mean, there are 2 positions open for Josh Sargent, Haji Wright, Jordan Peafock, Brandon Vasquez, and Ricardo Pepe. I'm a huge fan of Haji Wright. If you watch his goals from last night, it's incredible how agile and how nimble he is for a big player. And his header from last week as well was just an insane amount of power behind it. I'm a big fan of Haji Wright. And I think there's going to be an internal battle between Haji Wright and Jordan Peafock because they play very similarly. They have similar body types. They're big, strong, athletic players that can also bang in the goals and are also relatively agile for how big they are in their bodies. Now, Jordan Peafock made a move from the Swiss League, where he was the first American ever to lead a European league in scoring, over to Union Berlin in the German Bundesliga. And we said, you know what? If he continues that scoring form that he had in Switzerland for young boys for Union Berlin in the Bundesliga, I mean, he's got to be pretty much a lock, right? Well, maybe he is, maybe he isn't. I want to hear from you guys down in the comments what you think about Jordan Peafock. But I mean, he's still scoring. If you just rewind a few weeks when we were talking about Jordan Peafock and what he needs to do to get into these September friendlies and get his name on the sheet for the World Cup, we said, you know, if he had 3 goals, if he had 4 goal contributions by the time the World Cup came, that would probably be good enough to get on the roster. Well, that was before everybody was scoring. So he has 3 goal contributions in 3 matches so far. But that's not a lock. That is not a lock for this World Cup roster. He should be brought into the September friendlies. I mean, at this point, Gregg has to make a decision. Do you bring in 4 or 5 strikers into these September friendlies and let them all play it out? Or do you bring in the 3 or 4 that you know you're going to bring to the World Cup and start to build some chemistry? Brandon Vasquez is another really interesting one because as everyone was gathering for the European preseason, nobody was really scoring meaningful goals except Brandon Vasquez was. Up until last night when they played the New York Red Bulls, Brandon Vasquez had 8 goals in the last 8 matches. He is in incredible goal-scoring form. And for me, I mean, he does it all, but he does it against MLS competition. I'm less worried about putting Jesus Ferreira into the World Cup because of his familiarity with the team and what he's doing in MLS. For Brandon Vasquez, I think it's just a little too late at this point because he hasn't been able to build that chemistry with the US men's national team. But we will see. I do think he might be called in for the September friendlies. He's said he's talked to Gregg over the last few weeks about what he needs to do to get into the camp and get his name on the roster. So we'll see if Brandon Vasquez is there. If I'm bringing 3 players to the September friendlies, it's going to be Jordan Peafock, it's going to be Jesus Ferreira, and it's going to be Josh Sargent. Now, I think even if a few thousand people watch this video, they're probably going to have different names that they're going to want to see in the September friendlies. Ricardo Pepe is another name that we probably just have to touch on. Someone who's not getting a ton of minutes at Augsburg, and when he is, he's kind of getting that Josh Sargent treatment where he's not playing in his preferred position, but instead on the right wing. He's also not scoring goals, and he's not playing particularly well. I think, you know, if everybody else in this list wasn't scoring still, Ricardo Pepe would have some reputation built up to be called into these September friendlies and maybe to the World Cup because of what he did for the US during the World Cup qualifiers. But for me, there's 5 or 6 players that are scoring and are in form at the number 9 position. You have to put them above someone who's not necessarily getting a lot of playing time and not producing with that playing time either. So guys, thank you so much for watching this edition of It's Called Soccer. Let me know down below what you think of the striker pool that's currently scoring in bunches for the US men's national team, and I'll see you next time. Peace.